The massive ships moved through space like silver arrows cutting through black silk. 3 different alien fleets had joined together for this special mission. They were heading toward a small yellow star that the locals called Sol. Ambassador Zalthak stood on the bridge of his flagship, looking at the data screens with his 4 eyes. He was a Zephian, tall and thin with blue-gray skin that shimmered in the ship's lights. His people were known across the galaxy for their advanced technology. They had been traveling between stars for over 2,000 years. How much longer until we reached the primitive world? Zalthak asked his navigation officer. 3 hours, Ambassador, came the reply. The humans should be able to see us on their basic sensors by now. Zalthak made a sound that was like a sigh. He had read all the reports about these humans. They had only discovered faster than light travel 50 years ago. Their ships were crude and slow. Their weapons were simple chemical explosives and basic energy beams. They were like children playing with toys compared to the great civilizations of the galaxy. On another ship nearby, General Breakthrough was having similar thoughts. He was a Korthek, a species that looked like walking bears covered in thick red fur. The Korthek had once been warriors, but that was long ago. Now they mainly served as police for the peaceful Galactic Confederation. These humans fight each other constantly, Breakthrough told his officers. They cannot even unite their own small planet. How can such a species join the great peace of the galaxy? His officers made growling sounds of agreement. They had all seen the reports. Humans still used projectile weapons that fired metal bullets. They flew aircraft that needed air to work. They were stuck on their planet like insects in tree sap. The 3rd ship belonged to the Veiltar, an ancient race that looked like floating jellyfish made of pure energy. They were scholars and historians. They had been keeping records of galactic civilization for 5,000 years. Elder Wisdom Keeper floated in his meditation chamber, thinking about this new species. The Veiltar had seen many young races join the Confederation. Most were grateful for the guidance. Some were excited to learn about the greater galaxy. A few were afraid and needed gentle encouragement. But all of them eventually accepted that they were children who needed to learn from their elders. Prepare the standard welcome package, Elder Wisdom Keeper told his assistants. Include the basic technology gifts and the junior membership contract. These humans will need much help to catch up to civilized standards. The 3 fleets had come together because this was an important moment. First contact with a new species was always special. The Confederation had grown slowly and carefully over thousands of years. They brought peace and knowledge to every world they found. Wars were ancient history. Poverty and disease had been solved long ago. The galaxy was a peaceful place where science and art could flourish, but they had to be careful with primitive species. Young races often had violent tendencies. They needed to be guided slowly into civilization. The humans would get a junior membership at first. They would have to prove themselves worthy of full citizenship. It might take hundreds of years. Zilithek reviewed the human data one more time. Their largest ships were only 300 meters long. Their fastest vessels could barely reach 10% of light speed. They had no energy shields. Their computer technology was laughably primitive. Some humans still lived in buildings made of wood and stone. They're almost cute, thought Zalthak. Like watching baby animals take their first steps. The Confederation had a perfect record. In 2,000 years of first contact, they had never failed to peacefully integrate a new species. Some took longer than others, but all of them eventually saw the wisdom of joining the galactic community. The humans would be no different. General Breakthrough was studying tactical reports. Human military forces used vehicles that rolled on wheels or flew with mechanical wings. Their soldiers carried individual weapons and wore simple armor. They had no orbital defenses worth mentioning. A single confederation, Patrol ship could probably conquer their entire world without taking damage, but conquest was not the Confederation way. They preferred gentle persuasion backed by obvious technological superiority. Show the primitives what they could gain by cooperation. Make them understand how foolish resistance would be. Then welcome them into the family of civilized worlds. Signal the other ships, Zalthek ordered. We will drop out of hyperspace at the edge of their system. Standard peaceful approach. Broadcasting standard greeting in their primitive languages. The three fleets prepared for the moment of contact. Their ships were beautiful works of art as much as technology. Smooth curves that seemed to flow like liquid metal. Engines that barely disturbed space as they moved. Weapons that were mainly for show, since no one had needed them in centuries. Each ship carried gifts for the humans. Advanced medical technology that could end their diseases. Clean energy systems that would solve their pollution problems. Communication devices that would let them talk to the galaxy. All free, of course. The Confederation was generous with younger species. In return, the humans would accept guidance. They would agree to limit their population growth. They would stop their wasteful wars. They would begin the slow process of becoming civilized. Eventually, maybe in a few hundred years, they might earn the right to vote on Confederation matters. As the fleets approached the Sol system, the alien crews felt the familiar mixture of excitement and pity that came with first contact. Excitement at meeting a new species and adding them to the galactic community. Pity for creatures still trapped in the dark age of primitive technology and thinking. None of them suspected that in a few hours, everything they believed about humans would be proven completely wrong. None of them imagined that the primitives might already know about the galactic community and have spent decades preparing for this moment. The silver ships continued their approach to Earth, confident in their technological superiority and certain of their welcome. Behind them, space looked empty and peaceful. Ahead of them, a small blue world waited quietly in the darkness. But appearances, as the aliens were about to learn, could be very deceiving. The three alien fleets dropped out of hyperspace exactly where they had planned. The blue-green world called Earth hung before them like a jewel against the black of space. Its single moon reflected sunlight like a pearl. Everything looked exactly as their long-range scouts had reported. Ambassador Zalthek stepped forward on his bridge and activated the communication system. He would speak the first words to this new species. It was an honor he had earned through decades of diplomatic service. People of Earth, he began, using his translation device to speak in several human languages. We are representatives of the Galactic Confederation. We come in peace to welcome you into the community of civilized worlds. Please respond on this frequency. What happened next surprised him completely. Within seconds, a clear human voice answered. The response was immediate, professional, and confident. Unknown alien vessels, this is Earth traffic control. You have entered Terran space without permission or prior arrangement. Please state your intentions and maintain your current position while we verify your identity. Zalthek blinked all four eyes in confusion. This was not how first contact usually went. Primitive species were supposed to be amazed, confused, or frightened. They were supposed to stammer and ask simple questions. They were not supposed to have professional space traffic control systems. General Breakthrough was having similar thoughts on his ship. His communication officer looked puzzled as she monitored human transmissions. General, she said, they're using military-grade encryption on their internal channels. Their communication protocols are more advanced than our initial reports suggested. Impossible, Breakthrough growled. Our scouts observed them for months. They barely have space stations around their world. But the evidence was right there on his screens. The humans were not panicking or celebrating. Their response was calm and organized. Traffic control was giving orders to various human ships and stations with the efficiency of a species that had been dealing with space travel for centuries, not decades. Elder Wisdom Keeper was also puzzled. In his 5,000 years of life, he had participated in dozens of first contact situations. This felt different. The humans seemed almost prepared. HFY decided to continue with the standard approach. Earth Traffic Control, we are peaceful ambassadors from the galactic community. We have come to offer friendship and knowledge to your species. Surely you understand the historic nature of this moment. We understand perfectly, came the reply. The human voice was female, calm, and carried authority. You are the Galactic Confederation. You've been expanding through this region of space for approximately 2,000 years. You typically offer junior membership to developing species. Is this correct? The communication bridges of all three alien ships fell silent. How did the humans know about the Confederation? How did they know about their expansion patterns? The reports had said humans had no contact with galactic civilization before anyone could respond. Every sensor on every alien ship screamed a warning at the same time. Something massive was coming out of hyperspace. The transition signature was enormous, far larger than anything the aliens had in their fleets. Space itself seemed to bend and twist as something forced its way into normal space at the edge of the Sol system. What emerged made general Breakthrough's first stand up in shock. The human warship was a monster. Over a kilometer long, it looked like someone had taken the concept of ship and rebuilt it as an instrument of war. Where alien vessels were smooth and curved, this thing was angular and brutal. Its hull was covered in armor plates that could probably stop a small asteroid. Weapon ports dotted its surface like the eyes of a hunting spider. "Great Creator," whispered one of Zolth's officers. "What is that thing?" The ship's energy signature was off the charts. Its power output was higher than some space stations the aliens had seen, and it was moving toward them with purpose and speed that should have been impossible for something so massive. A new voice came over the communications. This one was different from traffic control. It carried the authority of someone used to command in dangerous situations. "Unknown vessels, this is Captain Sarah Chun of the United Earthship Prometheus. You have approximately 30 seconds to explain your presence in this system before I consider you a hostile force." General Breakthrough stared at his tactical display in disbelief. The human ship was not just big and heavily armed. Its movement patterns showed skills that spoke of serious military training. Its crew was reacting to the alien presence with the smooth efficiency of professionals who had drilled for this exact situation. "This cannot be," he muttered. The report said they were primitives. Ambassador Zolthak tried to regain control of the situation. "Captain Chun, I am Ambassador Zolthak of the Galactic Confederation. There has clearly been some misunderstanding. We are here on a peaceful diplomatic mission." "I know exactly who you are, Ambassador," Captain Chun replied. "What I want to know is why you entered our space without permission. The Confederation has strict protocols about first contact. Those protocols require advance notice and formal permission before entering another species' territory." The aliens looked at each other in confusion. How did this human know about Confederation protocols? Those rules were not secret, but they were not something a newly discovered species should know. Elder Wisdom Keeper floated forward in his meditation chamber. Something was very wrong here. His ancient mind was putting together pieces of a puzzle that made no sense. The humans were not reacting like a species experiencing first contact. They were reacting like a species that had been expecting this visit. "Captain Chun," he said, his mental voice translated into human speech. "Forgive an old scholar's curiosity. How long have your people known about the Confederation?" There was a pause. When Captain Chen answered, her voice carried a note of something that might have been amusement. We've been monitoring galactic activities for 52 years. Elder, ever since we detected your deep space communication networks. The silence that followed was deafening. 50-2 years. The humans had known about galactic civilization for 52 years and had said nothing. They had been watching, listening, and learning while the galaxy assumed they were isolated primitives. General Brechter, as tactical officer, spoke up quietly. General, I'm reading more human ships. They're everywhere. The sensor display showed what looked like a nightmare to the alien military commander. Human ships were dropping their stealth systems throughout the Sol system. Not 3 or 4 ships. Dozens. They had been there all along, invisible and waiting. Every single human vessel was a warship. Captain Chan's voice came back over the communication channel. Now, Ambassador Zalthik, shall we discuss why you're really here? Because I don't think this is a social call. Ambassador Zalthik felt his confidence cracking like ice under pressure. Everything about this first contact was wrong. The humans were supposed to be amazed and grateful, not demanding explanations. They were supposed to be primitive, not demonstrating advanced military capabilities. He tried to salvage the situation by returning to standard diplomatic procedures. Captain Chun, he said, forcing his voice to remain calm and authoritative. I understand your caution, but there is no need for hostility. The Galactic Confederation has brought peace and prosperity to thousands of worlds. We are here to offer your species the same benefits. What benefits? Captain Chun's voice was sharp. The junior membership you offer to primitive species? The guidance and oversight that slowly strips away independence? We've been watching your expansion for decades, Ambassador. We know exactly how your benefits work. Zalthek's blue-gray skin darkened with embarrassment. How could these humans know so much about Confederation policies? Those details were not public information, even among member species. On his ship, General Brechter was growing angry. The human attitude was completely unacceptable. They were speaking to their betters as if they were equals. Worse, they were acting as if the Confederation was some kind of threat to be guarded against. This is ridiculous, he growled to his officers. They are one primitive world with crude ships. We represent the combined military might of 1,000 civilized worlds. They should be honored that we noticed them at all. His tactical officer, Lieutenant Vrakter, nodded agreement. Should we demonstrate our capabilities, General? A show of force might help them understand their position. Brechter considered this. The Confederation did not usually resort to intimidation, but these humans needed to learn respect. Perhaps a small demonstration would help them see reason. Signal the escort squadron, he ordered. Assume attack formation. Nothing threatening, just enough to show them what they're dealing with. It was the worst mistake he would make in his long military career. The moment the Korthic ships changed formation, every human vessel in the system responded. The Prometheus, which had been approaching at a steady pace, suddenly accelerated. The ship moved with a grace that seemed impossible for something so large. Other human warships that had been hiding throughout the system began moving into intercept positions. Captain Chun's voice cut across all communication channels like a blade. Korthic vessels returned to defensive positions immediately. Any further aggressive actions will be considered hostile intent. General Brechter's fur bristled with outrage. You dare to threaten us? You primitives have no idea what you are dealing with. Actually, we know exactly what we're dealing with, Captain Chun replied. 3 light cruisers, 1 exploration vessel, and a diplomatic transport. Total combined firepower equivalent to approximately 1/3 of a single human destroyer. Would you like me to continue the tactical analysis? Lieutenant Vrechter stared at his sensor readings in disbelief. General, he whispered, she's right. How can she know our exact ship specifications? But Brechter was beyond listening to reason. His pride had been wounded, and the warrior instincts of his people were awakening. All ships, target the large human vessel. Prepare to fire warning shots. What happened next would be talked about in military academies across the galaxy for centuries. The human response was not panic or fear. It was clinical, professional, and terrifying in its precision. The Prometheus's point defense systems came online in a display of technological capability that made the aliens question everything they thought they knew about human development. Hundreds of small weapons. Ports opened along the human ship's hull. Each one tracked a different potential target with mechanical precision. The targeting arrays moved so smoothly and quickly that they seemed to be anticipating the alien ship's movements before the pilots even made them. "Warning! Shots fired," announced Captain Chen in the same tone someone might use to order. The beams that lanced out from the Prometheus were not the crude energy weapons the aliens had expected. They were focused streams of coherent plasma that could cut through molecular bonds at the atomic level. They missed the Korthik ships by exactly 1 meter, close enough to register on every sensor, far enough away to avoid a diplomatic incident. The alien ships rocked from the near-miss energy discharge. Alarms screamed on every bridge as the crews realized how close they had come to instant death. Elder Wisdom Keeper had lived for 5,000 years. He had seen the rise and fall of civilizations, watched species evolve from primitive hunters to spacefaring cultures. In all that time, he had never seen weapon technology like what the humans had just demonstrated. "Fascinating," he whispered to himself. They did not simply develop faster than light travel. They weaponized it. General Brechter stared at his damage control displays. The human warning shots had not touched his ships, but the energy discharge had been so precisely controlled that it had disrupted several minor systems just from proximity. The level of technological control required for such accuracy was beyond anything in the Confederation arsenal. Ambassador Zalthak tried one last time to assert authority. "This hostility is completely unnecessary. The Confederation offers protection from the dangers of the galaxy. Surely you understand that you cannot stand alone against the threats that exist in space." Captain Chun's response was quiet but carried clearly across all channels. "Ambassador, let me explain something about human psychology. We have never, in our entire history, accepted protection from anyone. We have always chosen to stand alone rather than kneel safely." The alien ships were now completely surrounded. Human warships had emerged from hiding places throughout the system. Some had been concealed behind asteroids. Others had been hiding in the shadows of planets. Still others had been using stealth technology that the aliens had not even detected. Every single human ship was designed for war. Their hulls were angular and efficient, built to absorb damage and keep fighting. Their weapon systems were obviously the product of a species that had spent centuries perfecting the art of destruction. These were not exploration vessels with defensive capabilities. These were instruments of battle, pure and simple. "How many ships do you have?" whispered Lieutenant Vrektor. His sensor operator checked the readings twice before answering. "I count 47 vessels, sir. All warships. All heavily armed." General Brechter felt something he had not experienced in decades. Fear. Not just for his own safety, but for the implications of what they had discovered. The galaxy had assumed humanity was a primitive species barely capable of spaceflight. Instead, they had found a military power that could potentially challenge the entire Confederation. Captain Chen's voice came back one more time. "Ambassador Zalthak, you came here expecting to find primitives who needed your protection. What you found instead is a species that has been preparing for this meeting for 50 years. Now, shall we have a civilized conversation about what happens next? Or do you need another demonstration of human capabilities? The silence that followed was answer enough. Captain Sarah Chun stood in the main docking bay of the Prometheus, watching the alien shuttle approach. The small craft looked fragile compared to human designs, all smooth curves and delicate lines. It was beautiful in its own way, like a piece of art rather than a working vehicle. She had agreed to this meeting after hours of careful negotiation. The aliens wanted to discuss terms, and she was curious to see exactly what they had been planning to offer humanity. More importantly, she wanted them to understand exactly what they were dealing with. The shuttle settled onto the deck with barely a whisper. The pilot was clearly skilled, handling the craft with precision despite being in an unfamiliar environment. The docking bay's atmosphere shield shimmered as it maintained pressure around the foreign vessel. Ambassador Zolthek emerged first, his four eyes taking in everything around him. Behind him came General Brector, his red fur slightly darker than normal, a sign of stress in his species. Last was Elder Wisdom Keeper, his energy form contained within a mobility suit designed for diplomatic meetings. Captain Chen stepped forward to greet them. She was a woman in her 40s, with short gray hair and calm brown eyes. Her uniform was simple but functional, designed for actual work rather than ceremony. Everything about her spoke of competence and experience. "Welcome aboard the Prometheus," she said. "I hope your shuttle flight was comfortable." "Your docking procedures are quite advanced," Zolthek admitted reluctantly. "More sophisticated than our initial intelligence suggested." Captain Chen smiled slightly. "I imagine a lot of things are more sophisticated than your intelligence suggested. Shall we begin the tour?" As they walked through the ship's corridors, the aliens began to understand just how wrong their assumptions had been. The Prometheus was not just large. It was designed with a level of military efficiency that spoke of centuries of warfare. Every wall panel could be quickly removed for maintenance or damage control. Every corridor had emergency bulkheads that could seal off damaged sections. The artificial gravity system had multiple backups. Even the lighting was designed to continue functioning under combat conditions. "This is not an exploration vessel," General Brector observed. "You're absolutely correct," Captain Chen replied. "The Prometheus is classified as a deep space reconnaissance cruiser. She's designed for first contact situations and extended independent operations." Elder Wisdom Keeper's ancient mind was processing implications faster than his companions. "You said reconnaissance cruiser. This implies you have larger vessels." "Oh yes," Captain Chun said casually. "The Prometheus is actually one of our smaller ships. We built her specifically for diplomatic missions because she's less intimidating than our main battle vessels." The aliens stopped walking. "Less intimidating?" The Prometheus was already larger and more heavily armed than anything in their fleet. They continued the tour, and each new section revealed more surprises. The medical bay contained technology that could treat injuries the aliens had never imagined possible. The engineering section showed power systems that operated on principles the Confederation had abandoned as too dangerous. The computer core processed information faster than some planetary networks, but it was the weapons deck that truly shocked them. Captain Chun led them into what looked like a cathedral of destruction. Massive gun housings stretched away in both directions. Each weapon was larger than some of the aliens' smaller ships. Control systems monitored every aspect of targeting, power distribution, and ammunition supply. "These are our main batteries," Captain Chun explained. 16 heavy plasma cannons, each capable of punching through 3 meters of reinforced titanium armor. Dr. Elena Vasquez, the ship's science officer, joined them on the weapons deck. She was a small woman with bright eyes and an easy smile that somehow made her more unsettling than threatening. "The plasma cannons are actually our secondary weapons," she said cheerfully. "The primary system is the particle beam array, much more efficient for ship-to-ship combat. General Breakter's voice was hoarse when he spoke. How many weapons does this ship carry? The Prometheus mounts 437 individual weapon systems, Dr. Vasquez replied, consulting her tablet. That includes point defense, anti-ship, and anti-planetary capabilities. She can engage over 200 separate targets simultaneously. The aliens absorbed this information in stunned silence. A single human ship carried more firepower than most. Confederation battle groups. Ambassador Zalfek finally found his voice. Why? Why do you need such destructive capability? Captain Chun guided them to an observation deck where they could look out at the stars. Earth hung in the distance, blue and peaceful. It looked so harmless from here, because we learned something very early in our history, she said quietly. Peace is only maintained by those prepared for war. We don't seek conflict, but we will never again be helpless before those who do. Elder Wisdom Keeper's curiosity overcame his shock. You knew we were coming. How long have you been preparing for this contact? Dr. Vasquez smiled at the question. Would you like the technical answer or the simple one? Technical, please. We detected Confederation deep space communication networks 52 years ago. We've been intercepting and decoding your transmissions ever since. We know about your expansion patterns, your diplomatic protocols, your military capabilities, and your political structure. We've had advance warning of your arrival for approximately 18 months. The alien delegation exchanged looks of disbelief. The humans had been spying on galactic civilization for over half a century. They had not been primitive at all. They had been gathering intelligence. 50 years, whispered Zalthek. You've been watching us for 50 years. And learning, Captain Chun added. We studied every first contact the Confederation made during that time. We analyzed your diplomatic strategies, your integration procedures, and your long-term policies regarding new member species. General Braktur's warrior instincts were screaming warnings at him. What did you conclude from this analysis? Captain Chun's expression grew serious. That the Confederation offers protection in exchange for gradual loss of independence. Junior members become full members only after they've been culturally absorbed. Full members follow Confederation policy or risk economic and political isolation. That's not true, Zalfek protested. We offer guidance and support. You offer control disguised as guidance, Dr. Vasquez replied calmly. We've seen the data. 93% of species that join the Confederation as junior members never advance to full membership. They become permanent dependents. The truth hung in the air like a weapon. The humans had not just discovered galactic civilization. They had analyzed it and found it wanting. Elder Wisdom Keeper floated closer to the observation windows. In all his centuries of life, he had never encountered anything like this. A species that had not only prepared for first contact, but had done so with the cold calculation of professional strategists. What do you want from us? He asked finally. Captain Chun looked out at the stars for a long moment before answering. Recognition that humanity is not a junior partner in need of guidance. We are an independent civilization capable of making our own decisions. We're willing to talk with the Confederation as equals, but we will never accept subordination. The implications were staggering. The humans were not asking to join galactic civilization. They were demanding to reshape it. The negotiation room aboard the Prometheus was simple and functional, like everything else on the human ship. A plain table, comfortable chairs, and display screens showing star charts and diplomatic documents. No decorations or ceremony, just practical space for important work. Ambassador Zalthek sat across from Captain Chun, trying to process everything he had learned. The careful plans he had brought for integrating a primitive species were useless now. The standard junior membership contracts seemed almost insulting in light of what he had discovered about human capabilities. General, Brechter remained silent in his chair, his mind struggling with tactical implications that kept growing more disturbing. The Korthik military had not fought a real war in over 300 years. Their weapons and strategies were designed for peacekeeping and anti-pirate operations. If humanity decided to become hostile, the Confederation would face its first major military challenge in centuries. Elder Wisdom Keeper floated in his mobility suit, his ancient mind working through possibilities and consequences. In 5,000 years of galactic history, nothing quite like this had happened before. The humans represented something new and potentially dangerous to the established order. "Let me make sure I understand the situation," Zoltek said carefully. "Your species has known about galactic civilization for 50 years. During that time, you have been building a military force specifically designed to resist Confederation integration policies. Is this correct?" Captain Chun nodded. "Essentially, yes. Though I would say we built our forces to defend our independence, not specifically to resist anyone. The fact that those forces can challenge the Confederation is simply a result of our thorough preparation." Dr. Vasquez had joined them for the final negotiations. She activated one of the display screens and showed star charts that made the aliens uncomfortable. Red markers indicated human monitoring stations throughout the local region of space. Blue markers showed human deep space vessels on long-range reconnaissance missions. "We currently have active surveillance on 43 different systems," she explained. "We've been mapping Confederation fleet movements, monitoring communication networks, and analyzing political developments throughout this sector of the galaxy." The scope of human intelligence operations was breathtaking. They had been treating the entire local region as a potential battleground, gathering information with the systematic approach of a species preparing for war. "Why?" Elder Wisdom Keeper asked. "Why go to such extraordinary lengths to avoid peaceful integration?" Captain Chun's expression grew thoughtful. "Elder, with respect, your definition of peaceful and ours are very different. We studied what happened to the Altarians when they joined the Confederation 50 years ago. They were an independent trading civilization with a proud history. Today, they follow Confederation economic policies, use Confederation technology, and send their young people to Confederation schools. They have become culturally identical to every other member species. They have gained peace and prosperity." Zolthak protested. "They have gained safety at the cost of their identity," Dr. Vasquez replied. "From a human perspective, that's not prosperity. That's extinction with comfortable living conditions." The alien delegation fell silent. They had never considered integration from that perspective before. To them, becoming part of the galactic community was obviously beneficial. The idea that a species might prefer dangerous independence to safe conformity was alien to their thinking. General Brechter spoke up reluctantly. "What are your intentions toward the Confederation? Do you plan to expand into our territory?" "We have no territorial ambitions beyond our own system," Captain Chun assured him. "But we will not accept any restrictions on our development or our choices. We reserve the right to make contact with other species on our own terms." This was potentially devastating to Confederation policy. If humanity established independent relationships with other civilizations, it could undermine the careful political structure that it maintained galactic peace for centuries. Ambassador Zolthak realized he was facing a complete diplomatic failure. Not only had the humans rejected junior membership, they were demanding to be treated as equals without earning that status through the normal process. Worse, they had the military power to enforce their demands. "What exactly do you want from us?" he asked. Captain Chun leaned forward slightly. "Recognition that humanity is a sovereign civilization with the right to make its own choices. We're willing to establish diplomatic relations with the Confederation, but as independent allies, not as members seeking guidance. And if we refuse? General Breakter asked. Then you leave, and we continue our current policies, Dr. Vasquez said simply. We've been monitoring galactic civilization for 50 years without your permission. We can continue to do so for 50 more. The implication was clear. The Confederation could not force humanity to join. Any attempt to do so would result in the first major interstellar war in centuries, fought against an opponent that had spent decades preparing for exactly that possibility. Elder Wisdom Keeper made a decision that would change galactic history. Captain Chun, what if we were to offer humanity full membership in the Confederation? Equal status with all the rights and responsibilities that entails. The human officers exchanged glances. This was not something they had expected. What responsibilities? Captain Chun asked carefully. The Confederation maintains galactic peace through mutual cooperation, Elder Wisdom Keeper explained. Member species contribute according to their abilities. Some provide scientific research, others offer economic resources, still others contribute to peacekeeping forces. Dr. Vasquez pulled up another display, this one showing Confederation military assets. The numbers were disturbing when viewed from a military perspective. Your peacekeeping forces are primarily designed for internal security and anti-pirate operations, she observed. You have very limited capability for actual warfare, because we have not needed warfare capability for centuries, General Breakter said defensively. But other threats exist in the galaxy, Captain Chun pointed out. We've detected at least 3 non-Confederation civilizations in the outer regions that appear to be expanding aggressively. What happens when you encounter a species that doesn't want to join your peaceful community? The question hung in the air like a challenge. The Confederation had grown complacent in its long peace. They had forgotten that not all species in the galaxy were interested in cooperative civilization. Elder Wisdom Keeper's ancient mind grasped the implications immediately. You're suggesting that the Confederation needs humanity's military capabilities. I'm suggesting that the galaxy is a dangerous place, Captain Chun replied. Peace is only possible when it's backed by the ability to defend it. The Confederation has created a wonderful civilization, but you've also made yourselves vulnerable to any species that doesn't share your peaceful ideals. Ambassador Zolthak felt the entire diplomatic paradigm shifting around him. The humans were not asking to join galactic civilization. They were offering to protect it. The final agreement took another 6 hours to negotiate. When it was finished, humanity had achieved something unprecedented in Confederation history, recognition as an equal power without going through the normal integration process. In return, humans agreed to provide military consultation and support for Confederation peacekeeping operations. They would share defensive technology and training, while maintaining their independence and sovereignty. As the alien shuttle prepared to depart, Elder Wisdom Keeper had one final conversation with Captain Chun. You've changed everything, he told her. The galaxy will never be the same. Change is necessary for survival, she replied. The Confederation created peace by convincing everyone to be the same. But uniformity is fragile. True strength comes from diversity, backed by the willingness to defend it. The alien ships departed Earth carrying reports that would reshape galactic politics. Humanity was no longer an unknown primitive species. They were a major power that had announced their arrival by completely reversing a first contact scenario. Within days, other civilizations throughout the galaxy received updates about the new situation. Some were intrigued by the possibility of alternatives to Confederation membership. Others were concerned about the implications of human military power. All of them understood that the galaxy had become a more complex and potentially dangerous place. Captain Chun stood on the observation deck, watching the alien ships disappear into hyperspace. Around her, the Sol system continued its normal activities, But everything had changed. Humanity was no longer alone, but they had ensured they would never be subservient. In the distance, Earth continued its eternal rotation, blue and peaceful in the starlight. It looked exactly the same as it had before first contact, but appearances could be deceiving. The quiet world that had surprised galactic civilization was now preparing for its next role. Guardian of a peace that would have to be earned rather than simply declared. The galaxy had learned that humans were not primitives seeking guidance. They were protectors who had never forgotten that freedom and peace could only be maintained by those strong enough to defend them against any threat that might emerge from the darkness between the stars.